morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Friday, May 25th, 2018. I am Dave Biddle, and I'm very happy to be joined by Jonah Booker for his usual Friday visit. JBook, great to have you as always, man. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure as always, my friend. Let's start at the top with Greg McElroy's comments yesterday, 97.1 The Fan in Columbus. He said that he's saying a lot of nice things about Dwayne Haskins. We'll get into that. But while he was talking about Dwayne Haskins, he couldn't help but mention he's talking about a throw that Dwayne Haskins made that we've all talked about, the one to Austin Mack in the Michigan game. And he says that's a throw that J.T. Barrett just wouldn't have made. Not that he couldn't have made it, he just wouldn't have been willing to take the chance and throw that ball. And then he kept mentioning J.T. Barrett's name. And the biggest thing that he said, and I completely agree with this, is J.T. Barrett was way too, quote, gun-shy. Just your comments on that, and do you agree with Greg McElroy?
I 100% agree with Greg McElroy. I think he was spot on with his comments and assessment. I know a lot of Ohio State fans have been saying that for the last several years, especially as J.T. Barrett got older. He was really gun-shy. He was risk-averse. He didn't want to turn the football over. So what does that mean? That meant that he was holding the football way too long. Wide receivers were open a lot of times, and the football was just not coming out, and that put a lot of pressure on the offensive line. And you would see that quite a bit in the offense. It was the times that they would have stagnation, a lot of times was because the quarterback refused to get rid of the football. And I was in 100% agreement with McElroy when you guys were interviewing him on the Carpenter and Rothman show, and I thought he hit it on the head when it came to Dwayne Haskins. A lot of those throws that J.T. Barrett wouldn't make, Haskins, he has the moxie and the arm to hit those throws. Now, when he completed and turned the football over, yes, he's going to turn the football over, but he's also going to make those throws. And what's going to happen is you're going to see a lot of explosive plays. In an interview that Greg McElroy really pointed out, the throw against Michigan when it was 3rd and 15, when he hit that back shoulder throw to Austin Mack in between coverages. And the thing that Greg wanted to point out was it a perfect throw? No. But Haskins had the guts to dial in, make the throw when the game was starting to have a little adversity for Michigan, especially with JT coming out the game. But he stepped up, delivered, and that's the type of guy Ohio State is going to see, a guy who is ballsy, a guy who is uber confident in his arm, and a guy that's going to make a lot of plays. But at the same time, he may turn the football over more than what you saw with J.T. Barrett just because he's willing to take those risks.
And I've heard a lot of, I don't want to call them Dwayne Haskins detractors. I think there's a lot of Ohio State fans that maybe aren't sold on him yet. They're still going to be rooting for him. But I hear a lot of Ohio State fans that maybe aren't quite in his camp yet will say, oh, we'll see what happens when he starts turning the ball over a lot. And, yeah, it's nice to take chances when it works, but wait till he starts throwing interceptions. Well, I tell you what, I don't care how many interceptions he throws as long as the ratio is good. You know what I mean? Like, if he throws, 17 interceptions, I mean, that's unacceptable unless he throws 40 touchdowns, which is what, I don't think he's going to do what Deshaun Watson did. But I always point out the Deshaun Watson example. Like, okay, don't tell me how many interceptions he's thrown unless you tell me how many touchdowns he's thrown. I mean, Brett Favre threw a lot of interceptions. Brett Favre was pretty good at playing quarterback, so I'm not – to me, it's the touchdown-interception ratio, and I think Haskins is going to have a good one.
Right, and I like to make these comparisons. J.T. Barrett reminds me of Alex Smith in the NFL. Yes, you're going to win some football games, but will his style of play get you to that next level? J.T. will check down with you all day. He will try to avoid turning the football over. With Haskins, he's going to bring that high-flying, I'm going to take risks, high-reward type of football. He's going to go out swinging. I'd rather have a quarterback that's going to go out swinging as opposed to a guy who would check it down all day. And not to say you can't win football games, because obviously Ohio State won a lot of football games with J.T. Barrett. They made the playoffs. But I don't think that's going to get you to the next level. I don't think that type of play can beat Alabama or Clemson, especially when you're going to need somebody who's going to need to make plays with their arms. And I think that's what you're going to get from Dwayne Haskins. And I know Greg McElroy said he went back and watched that game, and he's really excited about what Ohio State offense could be with this type of weapon at the quarterback position.
It makes me laugh, JBook, when I hear Ohio State fans say, well, who's Greg McElroy to talk about this? You know, he fizzled out right away in the NFL. Okay, well, if there was anybody who would have J.T. Barrett's back in this, it would be a guy that was like a product of the system quarterback who relied on the running game, relied on the defense, kind of, managed the game, was a good leader, but no one thought he was going to light up, the scoreboard, wasn't going to throw 40 passes a game. Now, they weren't the same type of player. I think J.T. Barrett was actually a better player than Greg McElroy. I think McElroy's a little bit better of a passer, but I think overall Barrett's the better quarterback. So my point is, all these fans that saw, Ohio State fans that saw McElroy's comment, it was like, who's he to talk about this? I would say he's probably one of the best people in the world to talk about this.
I actually like Greg as an analyst. I think he does a tremendous job. In fact, I think I think he's going to be one of the future guys at ESPN that's going to be one of their primary play-by-play guys. So I think he has a tremendous future. I actually listen to his radio show on XM that he does in the mornings, and he does a tremendous job on there. The guy is very analytical with his approach. He's not looking at it from a fan's perspective. He's just looking at the actual tape, the all-22 tape that ESPN provides their employees. So he's breaking down what he sees from his experience. And you hit the head, if you hit it on the head in regards to their style of play. During the interview, I was thinking to myself, Greg McElroy and J.T. Barrett, the way those two play the game is very similar as far as their leadership and, protecting the football at all costs, and also relying on the running game, as you mentioned. And relying on the running game is going to be something that benefits Dwayne Haskins this year, because he's going to be able to get himself out of trouble a lot of times with that running game. But I think Greg is very, very knowledgeable about the game, and he's someone that I respect in this industry.
I agree with you completely. He is a rising star in the industry. He does a great job. Very, very intelligent, knows his stuff. Let's switch gears a little bit. Charles Woodson had some interesting comments early in the week. First time you and I have had a chance to talk about this. He says the big reason Ohio State's been able, one of the big reasons, I don't think he said it was the only reason, but one of the big reasons Ohio State's been able to completely turn the tables on this rivalry. And in case anyone out there has forgotten, Ohio State is 15-2 against Michigan in this century. Again, 15-2 since Jim Tressel was hired. The year 2000 was the last century, kids. 2001 was the first year of this century. So 15-2. I just love saying it, JBook. 15-2. Okay. Charles Woodson says the big reason for that, or one of the big reasons, is Michigan does not put a big enough emphasis on the game. Ohio State does, but Michigan does not. Break that down for me. Do you agree with C. Woodson?
I absolutely agree with him, and I personally think that he's taking a quiet shot at Jim Harbaugh, because if you look at Harbaugh's comments when he was first hired, he kind of played it off. The media was trying to hype the storyline between him and Urban, and he kind of dismissed it as just being another game. Whereas where you had Urban Meyer and Jim Tressel coming to Ohio State, they lived, they breathed, they drooled. It was all Michigan, and it's still that way. It's all Michigan. In Ohio State, they live it every day. Does Michigan? I have to question if they really. If you listen to Charles Woodson, I have to question that they're putting the emphasis that Ohio State is on the game. I know Michigan has their other rivals. They have Notre Dame back on the schedule. They have Michigan State they have to deal with. But I also think that one of the reasons that Michigan is losing some of their fire in this fight is they pretty much abandoned the state of Ohio. And one of the points that Charles Woodson made was that those 90s Michigan teams, early 2000s under Lloyd Carr, they came to Michigan wanting to beat Ohio State. They understood the rivalry. Michigan has now went to a more hands-off Ohio and a national approach. Well, the thing is Michigan's backbone in those prior years was built on Ohio football talent. And what did those Ohio high school kids know growing up from the time they were able to understand football is the importance of Ohio State and Michigan rivalry. So when they arrived in Ann Arbor, coming from the state of Ohio, they already knew the importance of that game. Michigan has went away from that. Ohio State hasn't. Yes, Ohio State recruits more national compared to what they were under Jim Tressel, but Ohio State's foundation is still built on Ohio kids, and those kids understand the rivalry. So once they walk in the door, they have a leader in Urban Meyer who drools about this rivalry, who dreams about it. He wants to destroy Michigan any chance he can get. He doesn't care if it's checkers. If it's against Michigan, he wants to choke them out. And that's the difference between the programs. You have one coach who is ingrained in it, another coach who treats it as another game, and you also have kids on the roster who are raised in the rivalry, whereas Michigan has went away from what their foundation have been built on in past years.
Before I let you go, what do you make of Michigan this year? I mean, Ed Warner's on their staff. He can maybe give them a little bit of the tricks of the trade from Ohio State from the offensive perspective, plus he's a really good O-line coach, over his head as an offensive coordinator, but excellent offensive line coach. And just their personnel with Shea Patterson, their defense, just what are your expectations for Michigan this year?
I look at Michigan as a potential 2 to 3 loss team. You can have Michigan go 10-2, 11-1, or I can easily see Michigan going 8-4, 7-5. That schedule is absolutely brutal. And the thing is they open the gates with Notre Dame. That's going to be a slugfest. But if you skim through their schedule, they're going to be in about 5 sledgehammer matches out of 6 weeks. So what does that tell you? Will they even have enough coming down the stretch? What was the knock on Michigan last year? They would tap out in the fourth quarter. In their big games, they were outscored 31-0 in the fourth quarter, and they lost those games. You know, you look at Ohio State, South Carolina, Michigan State, some of those games that they lost. Penn State, they got their doors blown off. But if you look at their schedule, I just don't think the Big Ten did them any favors because they have Nebraska. Scott Frost is going to have that team ready to go. They're going to be laying the wood. Can Michigan beat them? Yes, but it's going to be a lot tougher Nebraska team than years past. Then they also have Wisconsin coming right up after Nebraska. They got Maryland mixed in there, which they should beat Maryland. But if you look at it, they also have Northwestern, who's returning NFL-style quarterback in a team that won 10 games. So they're playing at Northwestern. That's going to be a hammer game. And then follow that up, they got Michigan State. That's always going to be a head-hunting game. And then they got Penn State right after Michigan State. All of those games are within a few consecutive weeks of each other. Once they get to the East Lansing and Penn State, the final leg of that stretch, will they have anything left in the tank? I don't think Michigan is deep enough or good enough to withstand those type of sledgehammer games.
Fantastic insights, as always, from Jonah Booker. You can catch JBook's column every week on Bucknuts. It is outside Columbus. You can catch him on Twitter at JBook37. Thank you very much, Jonah. Thanks to all the listeners out there for tuning in to the show. I appreciate it. I hope you have a great day and a great weekend. Let's hear that Buckeye swag, best damn band in the land.